Welcome to Business Outlook, a podcast by the Albuquerque Journal, where we focus on 4 revolving themes: real estate, small business, emerging leaders, and technology. This week, we'll be discussing technology.
CNM is truly one college with infinite possibilities in tech and data sciences. CNM offers programs where everyone can learn about software, apps, or how to build websites. You can also choose from AI programs and machine learning, the Internet of Things, and so much more. CNM, one college, infinite possibilities, and a proud sponsor of the Albuquerque Journal's Business Outlook.
Anew Albuquerque-based venture studio is orchestrating the next technological revolution, helping build deep tech startups with investments, talent, and anything else they need to find success. My name is Matthew Narvaez, staff writer with the Albuquerque Journal, and this is another edition of the Business Outlook podcast. With us today is the CEO and co-founder of that studio, Adam Hammer of Roadrunner Venture Studios. Adam, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here with you.
I guess before we get to talking about Roadrunner, Adam, I want listeners to get to know a bit about you. So tell us a bit about your background and where you're from.
I was born in Houston, Texas, grew up there for the first few years of my life, and then actually moved abroad. So lived in North Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East. My dad was in the energy business, so we did a lot of moving around, and spent most of my adolescence there. Moved back to Houston for high school, and then did college on the East Coast in North Carolina, and have lived in New York, D.C., and now, of course, New Mexico since then. I started my career in banking, so I worked with a lot of large corporations thinking about how to think about M&A activity, how to think about when early companies should go public and think about IPOs. And that was a really formative experience for me. It taught me a lot of the kind of fundamentals of business, how corporations make strategic decisions, some of the challenges that they face, but also how to continue to be innovative and think about new products and new companies. From there, I left and joined a place called Schmidt Futures, which was a venture facility started by the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt. And I was head of strategy there and was really focused on betting on people, products, and ideas. We'll harken back to that when we talk about Roadrunner shortly. Yep. And then from there, helped to run a post-quantum encryption quantum computing company. And from that experience came to Roadrunner Venture Studios. And I'll tell you more about that Genesis story shortly.
Yeah, maybe before we get to Roadrunner Venture Studios, which I know is a rather new company, maybe you can sort of define for us what venture is. We typically hear venture with venture capital. In this case, venture studio. Maybe you could sort of help us understand that language.
Yes. So the basics of what we do is we invest in early stage companies. So that means companies that are, they can be 1, 2, 3 people. They usually haven't had financing partners yet. So founders are bootstrapping it, using their own capital or capital from friends and family to help build that early business. And kind of the basis of venture capital is what we do is we invest in those companies, we take an ownership stake, and we help catalyze them, fuel them for growth. And what we do at the studio is a little bit different than that. It does, at the end of the day, we do provide capital to a lot of the early companies we work with, but we're also building them from the ground up. So we have a team of product managers, business folks, we have recruiters that work with us. And really what we're saying is we can start with an idea. It can be in someone's head. It can be an idea or a patent coming out of a national lab or a university. It can be a product in wireframe. And we're going to help you take that core concept from idea all the way through to company. We'll provide capital, know-how, support, and in particular for the type of work that we're doing, there's a lot of product support. So we take that basic venture capital concept, but it's a lot more hands-on, working directly with founders and creating new companies.
In some ways, it sounds kind of like business incubation.
It does. Okay. It's exactly what that's like. It's business incubation in the context of deep tech. So in the context of research and development and technologies that are really born out of the lab.
Well, let's get to talking about Roadrunner. So this company was founded last year, launched here in Albuquerque. Sort of tell us how this company came together and what it is you do. Venture studio, right?
Yes. So we are like I said earlier, a venture studio focused on building new disruptive companies with entrepreneurs, with scientists, with innovators. We're headquartered here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We launched last year. We have an amazing team that partners with me day in, day out to build these companies with our founders. The core insight of building Roadrunner was, in this state and in a lot of states around the country, we have a wealth of amazing research and development and scientists. But what we need to do is take that technology and build it into products and build it into companies to create jobs and more capabilities in the state. New Mexico is blessed with, some of the highest R&D per capita, some of the most postdocs and PhDs per capita. It has a wealth of amazing research institutions and great universities, but it hasn't had a lot of venture attention. And what we're trying to do is turn that tide. We're going to come here and build companies that investors can invest in and that can, again, build prototyping facilities and factories and really spur more economic job growth here. Where this all started was, first in my own journey, when I was at Schmidt Futures, a lot of what we were doing was science and tech investing and thinking about ways to what we call de-risk these early ideas. So when you get an idea and it's coming out of the lab, it has some potential, but it's still very risky. There are things that need to be proven. There are teams that need to be built around them. You need to figure out a business model. If it wants to become a company, these ideas start with a lot of risk around them. And the goal of what we were doing at Schmidt Futures is taking those early concepts and removing the risks so that they're more palatable to the next investor. And our goal really was to get these companies to have more attention from government, from capital markets, and otherwise to kind of crowd in behind us after we had de-risked them. Using that core concept and then a formative experience I had at a place called Crypt, where I was serving as chief operating officer, we're actually building a deep tech company. Some of the core technology and IP came out of Los Alamos National Labs. So I got a firsthand view of how much amazing technology and how talented scientists are here in New Mexico, but that there's not that many companies that are created at the labs. Many of those lab ideas die for totally avoidable reasons. Not all lab ideas should become companies, but some should. And I think more should than the numbers show today. So we took these core insights and I partnered with an amazing team from America's Frontier Fund, namely Gilman Louie and Jordan Blaszek and Steve Weinstein, who really created the core concept around Roadrunner and the Venture Studio. And they brought me along with them to partner and really build out this idea into a reality here in New Mexico.
So how much did, that experience at the Los Alamos play into Roadrunner setting up shop here in Albuquerque? I mean, what, for you guys was really, a sticking point in setting up shop here in the city? So
I think Frontier Fund and the folks I'd mentioned earlier have had a long kind of standing relationship with the state and, of course, had a commitment from the State Investment Council. And within that, they decided that one way beyond just the commitment that the SIC made to really be accretive to the state and to create new companies here would be to create a venture studio. I think, again, taking a look at the amazing kind of raw resources here of people and state support, and I think the untapped potential of New Mexico that's just it's not getting the same amount of private sector and venture attention, but it's also not getting the same amount of kind of non-dilutive grant attention from the federal government. So you have this sort of overlooked and frankly, from a business sense, and it's not saturated. When you go and you're investing in and building companies in California or New York or Florida, there's all types of companies already in existence. This is a market that's ready and primed to explode. And I think the Frontier Fund team recognized that and said, look, one of the things we can do to the ecosystem is help build a company creation factory. And that's really what drove it to be in New Mexico. I had the privilege of partnering with them, and yes, having some context of what's in the labs was informative. For me, what I felt was, when we think about American competitiveness and security in the 21st century, one of the superpowers of this country is that we have some of the best research institutions and universities in the world. People come to school. We have some of the best R&D. We have incredible scientists. We also have a thriving ecosystem of startups. But those startups are all clustered in certain areas of the country. And we have seen an atrophy of the domestic industrial base. There are parts of the country that haven't been getting the same amount of attention. And so one way of marrying those two ideas was saying, look, let's use one of the superpowers of America, places like UNM, places like Sandia, New Mexico Tech, AFRL, and let's convert these early ideas in investable companies in New Mexico. A lot of my experiences, and I think the insights from the America's Frontier Fund team and the support from the SIC helped build that vision.
It sounds like there's a sense from your team and from you that maybe this could be the next Austin, or maybe even like a Silicon Valley.
I agree. I mean, that's pretty core to our bet. We think that there's a amazing amount of untapped potential here, and our mission is to help realize that.
How close do you think we are to getting there? I mean, I know it's kind of hard to map out a timeline, but I mean, your team really must see this sort of just breaking real soon.
Well, I'll tell you, Matthew, I think there's a lot of the basic building blocks that over the next few years, if cultivated, if invested in, and if built out further, could really catapult New Mexico. I mean, you have a lot of talent, you have amazing, again, research institutions, you have support from the state, and there's this DNA in New Mexico that is connected to, again, American security and competitiveness. New Mexico has lived in the public imagination of the country for years. I mean, Oppenheimer really highlighted this last year. Mm-hmm. But what is good for New Mexico is good for America, and what's good for America is good for the world. And as we think about this broader framing of building back better, thinking about the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, how we're positioning the country to be competitive economically and secure, I think New Mexico plays a massive role in it. It always has. And I think we're ready to sort of launch that anew here in New Mexico, and we believe in it. That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm. A term you've been using is deep tech. Roadrunner invests in deep tech companies. Can you define for us what that means?
Yes. So deep tech is the types of technologies that generally have a long R&D timeline attached to them. They're usually technologies that come out of the lab, and they're foundational to a lot of the companies we're building. So think of things like advanced energy, climate tech, hydrogen, fusion, fission. Think of manufacturing like robotics, digital twins, all types of new ways of creating materials, so materials science. It's also compute and microelectronics, semiconductors, which have certainly had a lot of attention in the last few years, and the microelectronics and the kind of compute power like quantum that are pretty disruptive, but also take a long time to develop, and generally, they have a strong R&D component and a hardware component to them. That's what we mean when we say deep tech. We also think about it as frontier tech and frontier technologies. And to us, that means those technologies that, back to the kind of geopolitical and national framing, are really important to the future of the country and the future of humanity.
So I know Roadrunner, having launched last year, you guys sort of, named your first cohort, if you will, of startup companies that you're working with. Maybe you could tell us a bit about those companies, what it is that they do and how you're helping sort of build them up. Yeah.
I'd be happy to. So we have 3 companies that we've publicly announced, and one of them is called Anew, another is called Hydrosonics, and the third is called Fab.ai. Each of these companies are unique in that, when we think about novel types of venture creation, company creation, we want to try to create companies in new ways. One way for Anew is out of the lab. So we partnered with a postdoc at Princeton University. The amazing founder there, Max, has developed a method to rapidly dehydrate live biologics. And what that means is for things like the COVID-19 vaccine, you can essentially dehydrate it insofar that you don't need cold chain storage. Makes life-saving vaccines and medicines a lot more accessible for the world. That technology was incubated at the university, and what we're doing is partnering with the university and with that founder, building the company around them, and finding a nexus here in New Mexico for them as well. The second company is a homegrown company called Hydrosonics. Dr. Luis Chavez is the founder there. He came out of Los Alamos National Labs. He was a student at UTEP in El Paso, came to Los Alamos a few years ago and worked on cutting-edge technology to apply acoustics to alkaline electrolyzers for hydrogen energy. And what we did is found Luis in the labs. He had this entrepreneurial spirit. He wanted to create a new company. We partnered with him to build hydrosonics earlier this year. We're doing the rapid prototyping right now, the testing. We're excited about the prospects. But that's another model. It's partnering with the national lab. It's actually bringing the postdoc out of that lab and building the company with them. The third is still a very early company concept, but it's Fab.ai. And it's really thinking about, an issue that's been highlighted to us from the federal government that says, look, we've got all these aging systems. Think about our F-16s or our Chinooks. These are 50, 60-year-old weapon systems. But oftentimes, there are replacement pieces that need to go into those systems that are not available by the manufacturer anymore. So could you build a new company that's focused on light manufacturing, 3D printing, metal printing, to actually replace those core pieces in those systems and do them at scale and quickly? This goes back to the kind of original insight that what we want to do is really rebuild American manufacturing here in the country and focus that on critical technologies. Fab is focused on that. It's being built with a team here. And again, all of these companies are really quite early. We're incubating several more in studio. But our goal is to get them to be to a place where they're investable by other people.
So is Roadrunner's focus sort of in New Mexico right now? And, are you guys looking to expand, your portfolio of companies, maybe outside of the borders of New Mexico?
We are. So part of what we're trying to do is this is always going to be our home and headquarters. It's where we were founded and where we will continue to be. But I think what we want to do is build a national network of these venture studios in different regions of the country. Each of these areas will have certain focuses. They'll have certain partners. And what we'll do is bring a lot of that attention back to New Mexico. It's a model that will be born here and exported to other places. We're thinking about places like New Jersey and other partners, both inside the government and outside. But the idea is, again, that we're going to build this kind of national footprint. One of the things we're really excited about is we have our Roadrunner Tech Forum that's coming up next week. And we'll have 50 investors from venture funds from around the country coming here to Albuquerque. We have close to 400 people RSVP'd. But to us, that's such a core part of our mission, to act as a lighthouse for the state, to bring folks here, to bring more entrepreneurs here, and to really make this really a home for deep tech and for company creation. We think it can happen, and RTF is one step to getting there.
Let's, maybe you can sort of expand on the tech forum that Roadrunner is hosting next week. I mean, who's going to be here? Are there any names that people might recognize?
Yeah.
I saw a couple, and it seems like you got some big players that are going to be coming to Albuquerque.
I'll tell you, we're really proud of what's going on next week, and we hope to make it an annual conference that, again, raises the bar each year. But so on September 4th, we'll be hosting the Roadrunner Technology Forum. And we'll be inviting guests that are going to be, there'll be a series of panels that these guests will be on. And we'll have a former Secretary of Defense joining us. We'll have a Chief Commercialization Officer from the Department of Energy. We'll have Gilman Louie, who's CEO of America's Frontier Fund and former CEO of In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture fund. We'll have a host of really amazing venture investors that have done, either have founded or helped fund early stage disruptive companies, some from Silicon Valley, some from New York City, but really pulling from across the country and coming here to take a look at our startups, take a look at what's going on in our labs, and really focus on New Mexico as a place that is ready to catapult. Again, it's a way for New Mexico to really plant a flag for this emerging industry of critical technologies and be known as a place that's friendly for business and really posed to succeed.
Roadrunner is about to hit its 1-year anniversary here soon. I mean, in that time, what have you and the team learned, about sort of helping build these companies? And, what have you learned about your home here in Albuquerque?
Well, one of the things that we have spent a lot of time thinking about and has been a key lesson learned is, so often in deep tech, people focus on the technologies. You spend a lot of time and people take a lot of pride in figuring out how to evaluate and think about and consider different types of technologies, the different commercial use cases. But at the end of the day, any amazing company boils down to the founder. Mm-hmm. It is fundamentally around people. And we know that coming in, and we have just kind of doubled down on that as well. That really Roadrunner at its core is a talent hub that is finding amazing people like the founders we're working with, like Max and Luis Chavez, and investing in them. And really the bet is really around them. And even if they need to pivot their businesses to new areas or new types of technologies, at the core, we're building a crop of amazing founders here. And it's made us feel really motivated about our work. It's one of the core insights we've had, and really doubling down on incredible founders in the state and then attracting founders from out of state to build here as well.
Awesome. Adam, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And, best of luck going forward.
It's been a privilege. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.